In this video, we're going to make a start on cumulative frequency. So our objectives are going to be to use a group frequency table to create a cumulative frequency table, and then to use that to create a cumulative frequency graph. Now, you might be asking, well, why do we do this? Well, we do it to answer questions like the following. So, how many 14-year-olds spend more than 12 hours per week on Facebook? I suspect not so many nowadays because you use other social media platforms. How many Premier League players make more than £300,000 per month? And how many people in a class can run a mile in less than 7 minutes? So if you notice each of these questions, it's always got to do with more than or less than. And you can answer loads of really interesting questions like this using cumulative frequency techniques. So let's make a start. So you should have the worksheet which I put on Teams, which you've been able to print out, or you've got the Word version, so you can follow along. So we'll do this example together to start with. So the table gives information about the number of minutes pupils spent on homework, and we want to use the table to complete the cumulative frequency table. So let's have a look at what this grouped frequency table actually tells us. So it tells us that the number of minutes represented by t, and we can see that t is between 0 and 10, so it's bigger than 0 because there's no line under that inequality sign, and the time is less or equal than 10, and that occurs twice. So we can say there are two pupils who spent between 0 and 10 minutes on homework. There were 6 pupils that spent between 10 and 20 minutes, 10 pupils that spent between 20 and 30, and so on. If we look at the cumulative frequency table, every one of the inequalities starts at 0. So in the first row, so in this row, we want the number of pupils who spent more than 0 minutes, but somewhere less than or equal to 10 minutes. Well, that's just going to be the same as the first row of the original table, which is 2. The second row is how many pupils spent between 0 minutes and 20 minutes. Now let's have a look at the original table, so we can see that between 0 and 10 minutes there's 2 pupils. So okay, so that's, so if we're looking at 0 and 20, then 0 and 10 is going to be included in that, and then we're also going to have to include the 6 pupils that are between 10 and 20. So we're going to have 8. So between 0 and 20 there's 8. And then between 0 and 30, well, that's going to include all of the pupils between 0 and 10, all of the pupils between 10 and 20, and all of the pupils between 20 and 30. So we would need to do 2 plus 6 plus 10, which is just going to be 18. And then next, between 0 and 40, we're going to need to include the 2, the 6, the 10, and then the 9. So basically, what we're doing is a running total. So we've done 2 plus 6. So we don't start with 2. 2 plus 6 is 8. And then 8 plus 10 is 18. So now we're going to do 18 because that's between 0 and 30. And then plus 9 because that's between 30 and 40. And that will give us obviously 27. And then we have to do 27 plus 3 to give us 30. So we can see that there were 30 pupils in total because all of the pupils spent somewhere between 0 and 50 minutes on homework. So the total number of pupils is 30. So we filled in our cumulative frequency graph. And just the reason we say cumulative frequency is because cumulative is similar to the word accumulate. So we can just think of cumulative frequency as a running total. I think that's probably the best way to think about it. So we have our table. It's not particularly useful yet. We need to put it into a graph to make it useful. So I filled in the cumulative frequency table here as well. And we're going to use this to draw a cumulative frequency graph. Now, one of the main mistakes that people have when they do these graphs is they think, oh, if t is between 0 and 10, I'm just going to go to 5. That is wrong. We do not go to 5. We use the end points. We want to use the end points. So basically, for the first row, we go across to 10, and then we go up 2. Because on the x-axis, we have the number of minutes, so 10, and then we go up to 2. We always use the end points on the right-hand side. So we're going to go across to 10, then up to 2. So we look at our scale, it's going to be there. Then we go across to 20, up to 8. We're going to go across to 27, across to 30, and then up to 18. Not a very good across there. And we're going to go across to 40, up to 27, 25, 26, 27. Not very good crosses. And then we're going to go across to 50 and up to 30. There we go. Now this is where cumulative frequency graphs are somewhat unique. We're going to join up all of the points. We're going to join the points up with straight lines. And we always start from 0 too, because number of minutes is greater than 0, but less or equal to 10. Well, that means it can cut you up right close to 0. So that means that we join up our points with straight lines bearing that in mind, starting from 0, 1 point to the next, like this. You want to be as accurate as you can be with a ruler, okay, using a ruler. And there we go, and we have our completed cumulative frequency graph. And a cumulative frequency graph will generally have this sort of S shape. It will have this sort of S shape. It might be a bit skewed or a bit squashed, or it might have some bumps in it, but it'll generally have an S shape like that, so you know that you're right. So that's our cumulative frequency table and our cumulative frequency graph. So what I would like you to do, well, first of all, I'd like me to spell my prepositions correctly. So what I'd like us to do is, so you have this on your sheet, so you can either do it in Word, or you can do it, preferably print it out, because that's more like what you'll have in the exam. I want you to fill in the cumulative frequency table, and then draw the cumulative frequency graph. So pause the video now, have a go, and then when you resume, we'll go. I've had a go. Here are the answers. So we have these should be your results for cumulative frequency, just by doing the running total. So we start with 5, and then 5 plus 18 is 23. 12 plus 23, 35. 4 plus 35, 39. 1 plus 39, 40. And you can see that there were 40 bushes, so the total frequency should be 40. So that is a sensible result. And the cumulative frequency graph you have should look like this. Be as neat as you can. And that's really all there is to it. So what we're going to do now is actually use our cumulative frequency graph to find the median. And well, really, it's an estimate for the median, because if you look at the data that we're dealing with, it is continuous data. So when we have a table like this here, we did a few months ago, we did how to work out an estimate for the mean from this. So you would work out the midpoint, so 172.5, 177.5, 182.5, and so on. You'd work out the midpoints. You'd do midpoint times frequency, add up the midpoint times frequencies, divided by the total frequency. That would be an estimate for the mean. Now we're going to find an estimate for the median using the cumulative frequency graph. So let's look at the last question with the bushes. So I'm just going to copy my graph straight away. Really, we're working out an estimate for the median. Now, we should remember that the median is the middle value. So if we look at our cumulative frequency, we can see the total frequency is 40. There are 40 bushes. So what I want to do is go down halfway. So halfway between 0 and 40 is obviously going to be 40 over 2, which is 20. And what I do then is I score across as neatly as I can. I'm going to use a different color just to indicate that. So we score across as neatly as I can. And then I where that line that I've scored across meets the cumulative frequency graph, I'm going to score down like that. And then I simply need to read off the height that I have on the x-axis, and that is the estimate for the median. So I can see here that my scale is such that 2 squares is 1 centimeter. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here, I'm 2 squares, roughly, well, pretty much exactly 2 squares before 180. So that is going to be 179. So I get the median height equal to 179 centimeters, or we could say 1.79 meters. So you should have a very similar answer. Yours might be slightly different because I know a pencil nib will be slightly thinner than even the thinnest pen tool on my flip chart. So we roughly get 179 for the cumulative frequency. 179 centimeters for the median. So lastly, I would like you to have a go at this question. So I'd like you to complete the cumulative frequency table, draw the cumulative frequency graph, and use it to estimate the mean time. So this is for lifetime of light bulbs. This is a really good application of cumulative frequency. So I'd like you to fill in the table, draw the graph, and then estimate the median. So pause the video now, have a go, and then when you finish, press. So hopefully you had a go. I end up with a median time of 62.5 hours. So your cumulative frequency graph should look like mine, and you should have a median time of somewhere in the region of 62.5 hours. So what we're going to look at next time is, let's go back here. So next time we're going to look at the using cumulative frequency graphs to find upper quartile, lower quartile, and interquartile range. And that sounds really complicated, but if you can find the median, this is just as easy. It's exactly the same, pretty much. It's just instead of going halfway, you go a quarter up and 3/4 of the way up. And we use that to find the interquartile range, which is a really useful measure for seeing how spread out the data is. So I'll see you next time. All the best until then.